So just a short video today on drawing the lips. Some simple abstractions and ways of thinking about this feature. So the lips are comprised of really complex curves in 3D space. And the best way to approach them, in my opinion, is to simplify. And so I go over two abstractions in this short 10-minute video, right? This is a 20-minute drawing session. Really quick, just a refresher on how I like to approach drawing these lips in a simple way. So the top drawing is this straight line from one corner of the mouth to the other, and then a simple curve for the top and the bottom lip, just to indicate the width of the lips. So you use that straight line, you plot it in perspective, and then you just have a top and a bottom curve. That's it. Very simple, 3 lines. Usually that is enough information to begin to plot shadows on top of, or to exaggerate a little bit and build the type of the person. Every person's face is different, so you do have to deviate from these abstractions. These simplifications are sort of like caricatures. They're simplifications, and so you will always have to deviate from them to make it look like the model or the reference. But plotting the corners of the mouth, the center line of the mouth, and then the width of the upper and lower lips are always useful. You're going to always need that information to be accurate, so start there, see through all the shadow and the form, and just plot these as simple points. Another slightly more complex, a little more perspective heavy in my opinion, is this sort of double trapezoid shape. Same data though, center line with the corner of the mouth. And then you have the middle, I think it's a tubercle is what it's called. The middle tubercle, and then the sort of wings of the lips for the upper and lower lip. So you can separate it into 5 segments: middle tubercle, left and right side, and then the bottom left and right of the lip. But that is all contained within that sort of trapezoid shape. And so using that to plot the perspective, the top and bottom of that double trapezoid shape is the straight lines are in line with the perspective of the mouth. And so if you draw that corner to corner line and then make sure that the top and bottom are also in perspective, it makes it a lot easier to contain your 3-dimensional form within a 2D shape that is constrained to the perspective, and then just fill that shape in with whatever is easiest. Usually for me, it's looking for the darkest dark, which is the corners of the mouth, and mapping those in with the shape. That gives you some structure to build off of. In this particular drawing, the teeth are slightly visible, and I just group them into a simple 2D value shape, and I leave it as that. I don't try to draw each individual tooth or the separations between teeth. I just group them, and then that's it, move on. I think unless it's a very, very bright and wide smile, less is more when it comes to drawing teeth, if they're visible. So you can see with this one, I started with the darkest dark, but I didn't lay it in incredibly dark. I just mapped it and filled it. Then I got to a point where everything was kind of in this middle gray. The shapes were still visible, but they weren't nearly as high contrast. So once I get to that point, I go back in and I reaffirm those dark darks with by pushing the values even more. So it's every drawing is a layering approach. Typically we have to build the values to some degree, and it takes like a couple iterations or waves through the design or the drawing as you're working it. It's also a really great way to build form that way, is to get a flat value filled in, but then you can see my calligraphy, or the lines I'm making, are actually wrapping around the form. You'll see that in another example after this one as well, where I'm thinking about the form in 3D space while I'm making the marks, and I'm trying to follow the form with the marks I'm making. Right there, you can see I wrap underneath the lid as it rolls back away from the light. I wrap over the lower lip, and not only does that make the calligraphy push the sense of form for the viewer, the hatching has some sort of form logic to it, but it also is just a great way to remind yourself that that's what you're doing, is you're mapping form. And so while you're making those forms, you're also memorizing those forms. So that would be considered what I would consider a form contour line. And I'm looking at kind of breaking down some of these terms and talking about them in separate videos. There's a lot of good artists out there that have done this, and so it is a little redundant. I mean, my explanation is not going to be noticeably better than any other artists out there, but I do have my way of thinking about things and organizing this information, and so I'll try to put that together in a way that's meaningful. So this one, this middle set of lips, I started with the same information. I just picked the closest corner of the mouth, I drew a straight line, plotted the farthest corner of the mouth, and I had my width. I found the center line in 3D space. I started mapping these big angles, and then drawing these curved forms in between. And so you do have to have some understanding of perspective to be able to plot curves in space. And also remember that when in doubt, you can always fall back on just two-dimensional shape recognition and just measuring accurately two-dimensionally and dropping the shape. That is perfectly valid, and most good drawings have a combination of both. It's really getting darker here. Yeah, that coarse shadow in that middle tubercle. I think the cast shadow from the upper lip onto the bottom lip is a little weak, and the forms could have been a bit more developed. But I do set my time limit on these because I'm not really trying to do like a perfectly rendered set of lips. I'm just reaffirming the shapes and just a refresher. So somebody mentioned in the comments of the last video that they would like a more in-depth explanation of the methodology, and I will attempt to do that, but I want to reiterate that there is no step 1, step 2, step 3 method. What it is it's a combination of things that you learn to look for, and then it's just combined with good shape placement so that you're not erasing and redoing, and then taking your time, of course. And so, but there are efficient ways to study and very key things that I think everyone should study if they're trying to get better at drawing either portrait or figure. And we can certainly go over those. I can start coming up with a list of videos and see what that would look like if maybe there was a 45-minute video or an hour video. Just breaking down and explaining things. It'd be a little bit more production, but could be worth doing. And then as I refresh myself from these with these studies, and I show them to people, I'm also going to be relearning. And that is actually the core of studying drawing, is that you are always just in a constant state of study, execute, refresh, go back to the fundamentals, study them again, refresh, warm up. Like it's an ebb and flow with life, and I'd love to walk you through some stuff. So thanks for watching.